All right, good morning, everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss. Welcome to Fantasy Football Live. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. It is Sunday, September 29th, 2024. And like always, we have a jam-packed day of football, starting with the 1 o'clock games. I'm going to wait to see what happens with the injury report that's going to be coming out in less than a half hour here. But we've already gotten clarity on a number of these players in terms of who's playing and who's not playing. Sam Laporta is playing. Keenan Allen is playing. Joe Mixon is not playing. Deebo Samuel is playing. Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara likely playing. So overall, and Devontae Adams not playing, but we found out about that a few days ago. So overall, still some big name players that are not out there, but also some who are returning, led by Deebo Samuel. So that's a good thing. And like always, every week, I will cover all of the instant injury analysis and videos. And honestly, you're not going to get this anywhere else. Like I know that there's apps out there. As soon as an injury happens, something is posted within 5 seconds. That's great, but I wait a couple extra seconds, analyze what happened, how severe it was, how it looked, and then update it, usually in the comments below the video, if said player is coming back, if he's questionable, if he's out, all of that stuff. So you get instant analysis on what happened with players, which is why, I feel like, my channel, I take a lot of pride in it. I try to make it stand above everyone else in terms of that. And also when you ask questions, I answer those as quickly as I can. I know it's frustrating when you post questions to various pundits out there and they don't answer you back, right? I mean, that's happened to me for sure over the years, asking other people's opinions and whatnot. So I always want to make it a point to answer questions. Try to get to as many as I can each week, especially when it comes to lineups decisions. But in terms of today, I'm just going to pull up the schedule. We're going to go through the games here, and actually I'll start with the weather. So the weather, we've been lucky. This Hurricane Helene blew through Florida and Georgia and Tennessee and whatnot, so it's really not that much of a factor. As a matter of fact, really the only game that has questionable weather today is tonight's outing between the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills, which is the premier game of the week. You have two of the best, the two top four quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson going against Josh Allen, and you have great running games with Derrick Henry and James Cook, who's really elevated himself, taken another step in his progression this season now that he's getting goal line work to go along with his impressive running and receiving ability. And remember, Derrick Henry was a guy I told you in the preseason to bet as the number one possibility of leading the entire NFL in touchdowns, and the dark horse was Brian Robinson Jr., who's off to a good start as well. But that game, there's a 50% chance of rain and moderate winds. So the passing game could be impacted here, but of course you have two running quarterbacks, so there's no question you're starting both Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. You're never not starting them. Like, the only time you ever consider benching one of these guys is if there's a blizzard. And anybody who owned Josh Allen a few years ago when they were playing in Buffalo during that blizzard against the New England Patriots, where I believe Mac Jones threw one pass the entire game, Allen, I think it was 10 or 11 passes. That was like the only time, and I remember I owned Allen that year, and I actually thought about benching him. That's the only time you really consider making such a move, all right? But let's get to the schedule. Well, we'll start off with the Jets against the Denver Broncos. So this should be a ho-hum game for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, multiple touchdown passes each of the last 2 weeks. Breece Hall, the absolute stud running back who's doing it all both in the running and the passing game. Allen Lazard has been reinvigorated with Rodgers under center. He's got 3 receiving touchdowns, and I think Lazard's going to have a good game today. Same thing with Tyler Conklin, because Garrett Wilson, and I know there's a lot of Wilson owners who are already thinking about benching him today because he's going against Patrick Surtain, who, in my opinion, has surpassed Sauce Gardner as a premier cover coordinator in the entire NFL. It's going to be a difficult assignment. So Garrett Wilson, unless you have like insane depth, like you have Drake London sitting on your bench, you're starting Garrett Wilson. Like, that's just certain guys you're never going to bench unless it's an extreme situation. Obviously, Surtain is unbelievable, but you're still going to play Garrett Wilson in this one. Broncos defense is pretty solid. Bo Nix played well last week. He still has yet to throw a touchdown, but he's running the ball, picking up yards on the ground. But the running game is a mess. Javonte Williams looks completely shot. Like he looks like somebody whose career has been destroyed by that knee injury that he suffered a couple of years ago. And it's a shame because the guy's got a lot of talent. So that is something that, if you're a Javonte Williams owner, he should be glued to your bench. And even Cortland Sutton, who's going to be going against Sauce Gardner, you can't use Cortland Sutton either, unless you're really desperate. Carolina Panthers at home against the Cincinnati Bengals. And listen, we all knew that Andy Dalton was going to reinvigorate this offense. It couldn't get any worse. But what he did last week and helping to fully unlock Deontay Johnson was staggering. All right, and Chuba Hubbard had a big game as well. Like everything, Dalton's been a good quarterback in this league for a long time. I know he's entered the journeyman phase of his career, but he was a multiple-time Pro Bowler with the Cincinnati Bengals. Always had a knack for winning games, posting solid numbers. Like, this is a good quarterback. Gets the ball out quick, good accuracy. And again, I was very high on Deontay Johnson coming into this season, thinking he was going to be a target monster. It just didn't happen with Bryce Young, but it's happening now with Andy Dalton. I think this is going to be a really good thing going forward as long as Deontay Johnson can stay on the field. I know he's banged up this week, but he will play. And yes, Chuba Hubbard against this sieve-like Bengals defense is at worst a flex play or a solid running back too. Jonathan Brooks still not ready yet, but he should be making his return soon. But Hubbard's playing so well that both of these guys now might be canceling each other out in terms of fantasy value. For the Bengals, T. Higgins is still not involved. Iosivas has been. He's been a revelation so far this year. So now the Bengals have 3 receivers that they can depend on. I know they did this with Tyler Boyd, but is T. Higgins going to be the one now left behind? Is T. Higgins still not putting... is he not 100%? Is he dogging it a little bit because of his contract? I don't know, but it was good to see Jamar Chase have a monster Chase-like game last week. So Chase, who really had slipped to the end of the first round as an insane value, everything looks fine in this passing game. Now, the running game, Zach Moss has been good, not great. Chase Brown's still getting his touches, but Zach Moss has held him off to this point, which is good for Zach Moss owners. Houston against Jacksonville. Both teams are really not playing well. Now, Jacksonville is in a whole category by themselves in terms of ineptitude. Trevor Lawrence looks broken. And believe it or not, there's actual rumors about him possibly being traded. Now, I will take the hit on Lawrence because I've been nothing but a proponent of this guy's ability. I still believe in the talent, but I just starting to wonder now if he might need either a fresh coaching staff, change of scenery. Do the Giants make a play for Trevor Lawrence at the end of the season? Is that possible? We've seen multiple instances, such as Sam Darnold now in Minnesota, Geno Smith in Seattle, Alex Smith back in the day with the Kansas City Chiefs, guys going to a new location, Baker Mayfield with Tampa, guys getting a fresh start somewhere else, and it just clicked. Trevor Lawrence has all the talent in the world, but this offense is broken. This team looks broken. And it's crazy because there's so much talent here. But Evan Engram is out again with the hamstring injury. It's been a complete abomination of a season. Here's the thing. In one of my leagues, I drafted both Mark Andrews and Evan Engram. And I thought, wow, I have 2 of the premier top 5 tight ends in the game. I kind of did that because I was looking to trade one of them. And I ultimately wound up trading Mark Andrews, who's done nothing. And I thought, okay, Evan Engram's going to be great. Well, he had 1 catch in the opener, and he's been hurt each of the last 3 weeks. So it's been... a completely useless season for Engram, who's bringing back memories of his injury-filled early career with the Giants. But, you're still starting ETN. You're still, if you want to put Brian Thomas out there, that's fine, but you can't start Trevor Lawrence even in Superflex leagues at this point. For Houston, all these receivers are banged up. Tank Dell's not going to play. Nico Collins will. He's banged up. But Stephon Diggs could be in a good spot here. No Joe Mixon. He's been hurt for multiple weeks now, so Cam Akers, if you're really going to trust Cam Akers, God bless you, I won't. Although it's not a bad matchup. CJ Stroud, hasn't exactly hit his stride yet, but I think he's going to be just fine. Pittsburgh, undefeated Pittsburgh, favorite on the road against Indianapolis and Anthony Richardson. I've sounded the alarm on this from the very beginning of the season. He looks awful. He can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. That's how bad Anthony Richardson is, and it's dragging down everybody in this passing offense, especially Michael Pittman, who has been virtually non-existent. If Anthony Richardson is going to continue to struggle like this throwing the football, there could be a situation where he takes a seat for a couple of games. I know there's a lot invested here, but again, he hardly played in college. I believe it was only 7 or 8 starts he made in college, which is like a terrible a trend of development when it comes to these guys. Like Mitch Trubisky was another guy who only had 1 year of starting in college. Mark Sanchez was another one. Guys who have such a limited experience as stars in college tend to really struggle in the NFL, at least initially. And Anthony Richardson, whose accuracy was always in question, has been just awful the last couple of weeks, to where his owners are now thinking about benching him, and I completely understand. And this is a rough matchup against a Steelers defense that looks far and away to be the best in the entire NFL. What they did last week against the Chargers was just absurd. How many times they were in the backfield hitting Justin Herbert. And this team is playing with a lot of confidence. They're undefeated. And Justin Fields, who I said would not lose this job outright if he won games, is not losing this job. And he's coming off a 20-plus point fantasy game last week after just moderate production the first 2 weeks. I think Justin Fields is set up nicely and I have him on multiple teams as a backup. And I remember I posted that video before the season saying there's a top 12 quarterback who's free on the waiver wire right now, and that's Justin Fields. Pick him up. Hopefully you listen. And this is a really good spot for him against Indianapolis. George Pickens is going to be inconsistent. He drew some tough matchups early on, but I think he will get back on track in this one. And Najee Harris, with no Jaylen Warren today, Najee Harris is going to continue to get a ton of looks not only in the running game, but also the passing game. Green Bay welcomes back Jordan Love against the Minnesota Vikings. Couple of angles here. One, Jaden Reed gets a massive boost after dealing with the limited passing of Malik Willis the last couple of weeks. But let's be fair, Malik Willis held the fort. He won both outings. He played relatively well, threw the ball relatively well, ran with the ball nicely as his skill. And that's a skill that he has. But Jordan Love now will bring Jaden Reed back to that high-end wide receiver 2 value. I myself have both runners in this one. Aaron Jones is in a revenge spot. You can count on the fact Minnesota is going to feed him liberally against his former team, who really dumped him last year for Josh Jacobs, who hasn't really been that great. Jacobs has not really been involved in the passing game. His running has left a little bit, especially last week. He was terrible running the football. Emmanuel Wilson has looked solid behind him. But this is a game where the surprising 3-0 Minnesota Vikings, and again, it's all about the coaching. I mean, look at how good Sam Darnold is playing with Kevin O'Connell as his coach, as opposed to when he was with the Jets. I really like Aaron Jones in this spot here, and Justin Jefferson should continue to feast. Philadelphia, they are road favorites against Tampa Bay. These are two teams whose offenses are kind of broken right now as well. Philadelphia, it's really been the injuries and the turnovers of Jalen Hurts. Hurts has been a turnover machine. This was an issue early last year as well before he straightened it out. There's no A.J. Brown. There is no Devontae Smith. So Dallas Goedert is set for 897 targets in this one. And Saquon Barkley as well, who's having a phenomenal year. Like, this is the Saquon Barkley from his rookie year with the New York Giants. Like, he's been insanely productive. And he has a smash spot against a leaky Tampa Bay defense. And Baker Mayfield, other than take out that big first week, he struggled. Mike Evans has been a non-factor the last 2 weeks. Chris Godwin, on the other hand, has been one of the best wideouts in fantasy. And moving back to the slot, he's scored in every game. Now, could Chris Godwin be this number one guy in the offense and Mike Evans take a back seat? Certainly looks that way. Bucky Irving, it's a shame he's banged up this week. He will play, supposedly, though, because I thought this was the week that he could completely take over this backfield from Rachaad White, who's been just abysmal running the ball. It's anybody who has seen Rachaad White play knows he just can't run the football. And Bucky Irving, as long as he can stay healthy, can take this job outright from him soon. Atlanta against New Orleans. This is an underrated rivalry here. Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara are expected to play. There should be a lot of points scored in this one. These are usually shootout games. Kirk Cousins has looked better of late. His accuracy has been good, even though his already limited mobility is even worse now. Drake London scored in each of the last 2 games. Kyle Pitts still nothing. Bijan Robinson coming off a rough outing running the ball. Tyler Algier is kind of accumulating, that's a tough word, more touches than anticipated, especially the last 2 weeks. So that's something to keep in mind there. But it's good to see Drake London really start to mesh now with Kirk Cousins, who has a history of really delivering wide receiver 1 campaigns. And for New Orleans, rough week last week, but they've earned enough credit now to trust them for this week. Chicago against the Rams. Caleb Williams was good last week. He gets Keenan Allen back. That will help. And the Rams, who were down Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, dusted off Tutu Atwell and Kyren Williams last week. Kyren Williams finally put forth a good game after 2 duds to begin the season. They're still using him as the bell cow, so no Blake Corum. I've been wrong about that one. I thought they were going to get Blake Corum more involved as the season went along. Maybe that will still happen, but at least for now, it's going to be Kyren Williams. Arizona, Washington. I already did a video this morning. No need to rehash on that. Go watch that video. Over under a 50. This is going to be an insane offensive bonanza for both sides. You're starting everybody, right? I'm starting Jaden Daniels over Jalen Hurts in this one. That's how I like the matchup for both teams. San Francisco, big favorites over the New England Patriots. Patriots sticking with Jacoby Brissett, and that's a smart move because this offensive line is playing terribly right now. They don't want Drake May to get banged up. San Francisco, though, coming off that Juwan Jennings masterclass with Brock Purdy throwing him the ball. Jennings will take a back seat to Deebo Samuel, who returns from injury, as does George Kittle. So they're getting whole again in San Francisco. And again, Brock Purdy, just when we all just want to put him on the bench, he delivers a game like he did last year to reinforce the notion that he's just not going away as a solid contributor week in and week out. Cleveland against Las Vegas. The Raiders can't run the football. Zamir White has been a bust. Devontae Adams is injured. Trey Tucker, I picked him up. I'm starting him in 1 league this week. He's a lot of speed, big play guy. I think that they're going to have to throw the ball more than anticipated in Las Vegas because they can't run the ball. In Cleveland, you can throw on them. It was good to see Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper get their connection back on track last week. Kansas City against the Chargers. We don't know yet about Justin Herbert. He's incredibly banged up, and it's hard to have any confidence in Taylor Heineke. In this one here, Kansas City's passing attack has been a lot of Rashee Rice, very little of Travis Kelce, and it was Carson Steele running the ball last week, not really Samaje Perine, but the Chiefs might be able to shut it down early in this one. Baltimore and Buffalo, we talked about that. Both teams, 2 of the best running quarterbacks in the game, 2 very top-tier running backs as well, and it's been Khalil Shakir taking the lead mantle for the Buffalo passing attack, with Keon Coleman contributing somewhat. And then Baltimore with Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman. Mark Andrews continues to just struggle and not do much of anything. He's got to be injured. That's got to be the only logical explanation there. 2 Monday night games again. Miami against Tennessee. What is Miami going to do here to try to save their season? You can't continue to go forth with Tim Boyle and Tyler Huntley and Skylar Thompson when you have mega personalities on this team, such as Tyreek Hill, such as Devin Achane, guys, top tier superstar talent that's going to be completely laid to waste with the quarterback situation. How does Tim Boyle continue to play in the NFL? And this is the thing that really confounds me. Are we really that desperate for quarterbacks that this guy is still in the league? He's one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. And even in college, he barely won any games and has more interceptions than touchdowns. How does this guy continue to hang around in the NFL? It just astounds me that he's still playing. And then Detroit against Seattle. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this one. Seattle's 3-0, but they now face a much stiffer, elevated level of competition against the Lions. And Jared Goff, who hasn't been playing very well this season, Seattle's defense has been good. But again, the quality of competition will step up for Seattle in this one. So we're going to have to see how Geno Smith and company react. But listen, the new offense is working nicely. I know Jackson Smith and Jacobs are a little hot and cold. DK Metcalf, once he got away from Patrick Surtain, has been his monster Pro Bowl self. The running game has been a big feature as well. Zach Charbonnet was great last week. Not so much the week before, filling in for Kenneth Walker. Walker is back this week from his abdominal injury, so that's good to see as well. So Ryan Grubb has installed an offense that has kind of modernized, because under Pete Carroll, it was just a boring offense, especially the last couple of years. So I thought that was a good hiring for Seattle. Something that was much desperately needed. And when you have a trio of receivers like they do, I know Tyler Lockett is fading, but he's still a dependable guy. You have to modernize to a degree, which they have done, and they've gotten very good results out of that. So let me just get set for the injury update, and then we'll call it a day here. And again, guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button because there's going to be a lot of videos typically on a Sunday. And if you're new to this, usually between, 10 to 20 videos, depending on how bad the injuries are. And let's face it, the injuries have been like as bad as can be to begin the season. I know I have one league where I have Cooper Kupp injured. I had Trey McBride knocked out with a concussion, so he's out this week as well. So I've had to really kind of scrape the barrel of the waiver wire with Trey Tucker and Tyler Conklin, the tight end for the Jets, to come up with suitable replacements. And again, the tight end position, I really don't understand it. I don't know what's going on here. Like, I know we've had this trend of tight ends coming out, pass-catching tight ends. Maybe opposing defensive coordinators kind of just had a powwow during the offseason of, like, we got to stop these tight ends. But the big thing this year is the two high safeties, which will impact the deep passing game. So you would think with that, which has hurt guys like Tyreek Hill, which has hurt guys like Garrett Wilson, you would think with that defensive alignment, it would soften up the short to intermediate game for the tight ends, but it just hasn't happened. Like, every top guy outside of Brock Bowers, who is really like drafted as the tight end 8 or 9, has been a massive disappointment, led by Kelsey, led by Trey McBride, led by Sam Laporta and Mark Andrews. Like, those are your top 4 tight ends. And Dalton Kincaid, who's everybody's favorite sleeper, have all gone, have done one big giant face plant. So this is dragging down a lot of teams. And I was a big proponent of getting one of those top tight ends. But those who waited and got Brock Bowers, who is the target leader at the tight end position, definitely came out on the positive side there. All right, so, and then you have Evan Ingram, who's been injured. It's just been one big mess. Like, Noah Fant, thought maybe he would have a comeback season. Guy's a great athlete, but again, it's just not happening there. Even in Seattle there. So a couple minutes away from the injury report. I don't think we're going to see any surprises here. Let me just look through some of the older stuff. We talked about Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave playing. Olave had a good game last week. Oh, Christian McCaffrey. So here's the thing. Christian McCaffrey, back from Germany. He could run a little bit this week. They're pointing toward early November. All right. So there was a lot made out of that trip to Germany. He's been battling an Achilles injury, and the 49ers have been absolutely destroyed, rightfully so, for the way that they handled this with the media and not being very forthcoming there. But it looks like McCaffrey will eventually come back. Do they baby him? Jordan Mason's been good. I still think there could be a timeshare between the two to further preserve McCaffrey there and get him to the playoffs. So that's something that we're going to have to keep an eye on there. But again, listen, there was no reason to draft McCaffrey number 1. All right, it was just not. It was not a good idea to do that, just with all the wear and tear on the guy that he brought into this season. It was just you got to always get out a year early as opposed to a year too late. All right, so just about less than a minute from the injury report, and then I'll jump off here, and we will reconnect once the games start at 1:00. And this Monday night, 2-game thing on Monday night, I'm not loving it. But it's. I guess this is like the new thing that the NFL's trying. And by the way, last night in the battle to who could be the number one quarterback in 2025, Carson Beck and the kid from Alabama there put on an absolute show. It was a late comeback attempt by Georgia, but it was eye opening, right? I mean, Jalen Milroe from Alabama, Carson Beck. These two guys look like they're going to be the top picks of the draft next year. And as a Giants fan who could be in position to get one of these guys, I'd be happy with either one of them. But I tell you what, Jalen Milroe has really progressed as a passer this year. He threw the ball great last night. That's something that's really impressed me. All right, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara are active. All right, so we knew that coming in, so no issue there. So the stuff is starting to come in now. I don't think we're going to see anything. I don't think we're going to get any surprises. I'm just hitting refresh here. Jair Alexander is inactive for Green Bay. But so here's the key. The Green Bay will be without their top two corners today. So Justin Jefferson is sitting in, and Jair Alexander has been the one cornerback that's given Jefferson trouble. This is a smash spot for Justin Jefferson with both Green Bay's top cornerbacks out for this one. So that's a pretty significant development. The fact that he's going to be, that the Packers are down such key players in their secondary. Bengals, nothing to see here. Alright, looks like. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Anything that we need to. Alright, Bucks. Alright, so Rachaad White, who had a stomach bug, is playing today. So no surprises there. So yeah, it looks like pretty much everything that we expected with the injury report has been accurate. So I'm going to end it there, guys. So again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I can't do it for you. You want to be around for all these analysis videos. And again, I also post during the day about, good performances, any kind of changes in hierarchy at the running back position, stuff like that. So it's not just for injuries. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. So, all right, guys, good luck in your matchups today. Hopefully everybody comes out healthy, and we will chat later. Take care, guys.